there are some changes that will probably be called for. Let's start with nutrition. What are some things people will need to make sure they have on their diet? What are some things they need to avoid? And where can they get more information beyond what we talk about here today?
Well, so the resources, again, a diabetes education resource near their facility, their community, certified nutritionists would also be able to help them. The American Diabetes websites, WebMD websites would be great resources. The libraries are full of great resources as well, so they can go and get those books at very little cost to them, and that would be a good place to start. What I would say, too, is that let's now go forward to the healthcare provider has said, I want you to make an appointment with the nutritionist, and that appointment is going to be in 3 weeks' time. Well, in the time that you're going to see that nutritionist, you can be well prepared to help that nutritionist and yourself get the most out of that visit. Most insurances will cover at least one visit, maybe 2 maximum, but not usually long-term nutritional counseling. So you want to maximize what you get out of that first visit or 2. I would record everything that I've eaten. What are my favorite foods? I'd bring the food labels with me. If you travel quite a bit, these are the restaurants that I've stopped to and I've gotten their food labels, because it really has to be customized. There are certain foods that people will like and people won't like, so you can't be one diet fits all. That really won't work very well. And that's a recipe for most patients walking out of that office visit and feeling really unsatisfied that they won't adhere to the nutritional recommendations. So I would be prepared and bring that information with you. Part of it is, for instance, how to make substitutions with foods. If you need a snack in the evening, well, maybe a sugar-free chocolate pudding will work just fine versus regular puddings. Or if it's diet soda. So a lot of times the nutritionists can help you make substitutions for your foods, and they can pretty much taste the same and have the same sort of texture and satisfaction. So first I would say go to the appointment prepared.
Good.
Then I would say that typically the nutritionist is going to work through total calories. Like how many calories do you need in a day based on your energy consumption? So do you sit mostly in front of a computer doing your job, or are you doing a lot of active physical labor? Those are different energy requirements, and so you may need more calories than someone else. And then for diabetes, sometimes there's a misperception that you can't have any carbohydrates. You're really not an adherent to that. You have to have carbs in your diet. So it's learning the food groups. I'd be a little surprised how many people are not really quite sure of all the major food groups of what is a protein, what is a fat, what is a carbohydrate.
Now, physical activity or exercise can play an important role, can't it? What do you generally recommend there?
Absolutely. There have been quite a number of studies that have addressed the issue of exercise. Probably the best that I think is the diabetes prevention program, in that it required about 150 minutes of exercise per week. So 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And it could be anything, really. It's just to get up and move. Gardening, house cleaning, dancing, brisk walking, going to the gym, running, whatever seems appropriate and is fairly easy to do. We don't want people injuring themselves. But it is things that just requires movement, getting up and doing it on a regular basis. And I think that's a good place to start.
I know some people might get started and have trouble sustaining it. Do you have any advice for how they might be able to maintain their new exercise or activity regimen?
Yeah, I agree with you. So a lot of times what we'll see in the beginning phases is they've seen a nutritionist, they've embarked on an exercise program, they may even have joined the gym. They'll be very enthusiastic, and then it begins to wane. And we see that in many studies. So I think it's just a natural thing that we can tend to lose focus. Perhaps there are other pressing issues of the day, economic issues and things that will take your attention, and you start not to pay attention, or stress occurs in your life. And then people start paying attention, or they're tired of weighing their food or measuring cups of rice or things like bowls of cereal. They don't want to do that anymore. I think that if you can recruit a friend, a loved one, get the whole family involved, and then realize that there are going to be times that you're going to lose your focus, and so anticipate perhaps of changing, making the diet a little more interesting, going back to the nutritionist and say, okay, I've been eating turkey sandwiches every day now. It's time to think of something else to make this a little bit more interesting. So I think it's acknowledging that, one, it takes time to make a change. When you do and you start to see the results, admit that sometimes you'll lose your focus, but it's nothing for you to be guilty over or feel ashamed and then decide, well, what the heck, I just will abandon this whole process. It's okay to kind of lose sight for just a little bit and then get right back on and find something else. It's like with exercise. It's important for it to be varied. If you're always on the treadmill doing the same thing over and over, it can get boring, and it's nice to sort of mix things up.
All right. Well, now it sounds like for both the nutrition side and the physical activity or exercise side of this, that it would, what you're recommending for the person with diabetes would also be good for other family members and friends. So to recruit them would be helpful to everyone.
Absolutely. I think that that's exactly right, so that the patient doesn't feel isolated, to have some pretty frank discussions around the dinner table holidays to talk about, I was just diagnosed with diabetes, or my blood sugars aren't very good. Let me tell you about that. How are things for you? You may be at risk. These are some of the things that you should ask your healthcare provider about. I found this recipe was really terrific, or I didn't like this one so much. So I think it's sharing that way, and I think it's important for the family.